listening to us live on Roots 96.1. So we're inside the studio and we have none other than our special guest, Deon Gray. Deon Gray, who do we have in the studio with us today?
And beside Vanessa is a lady who has spent almost all her life dealing with legislation, writing laws, most of the laws that govern our society today. So, Vanessa is a holder of a law degree,
Uh-huh.
master's in law and specialism in the areas of drafting laws and policy development. And beside her is an esteemed lady, Erica Boswell Monroe, master's degree in legislative drafting, 32 years with the government, 27 years as chief parliamentary counsel, and she has written most of the laws that govern me and you today. Yes, Jocelyn.
Oh, yeah.
And she's retired as deputy chief parliamentary counsel. So we have two distinguished ladies here, Miss McLean and Miss Boswell Monroe. Welcome to Roots 96.1. Welcome to the Smooth Link Show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us this evening to serve.
Well, my first question was please explain to our listeners what does it mean to have a legislation? What does legislation mean? I know a lot of our citizens hear about legislation, but they don't have the slightest idea or very vague understanding of that terminology. So explain to us.
Well, basically, legislation constitute the acts of parliament and all the regulations that flow from those acts. So basically, the reason why we call it an act is because it's the deed of the parliament. And basically, what happens is that under electoral system, we elect these persons, and then they make laws for and on behalf of us. And hopefully they will consult us and they will make the laws in our interest.
That part will like, hopefully, they will consult us.
And I must add that that is a legal definition, but laws, breaking it down to the man on the streets term, is a tool of social regulation. A tool of social regulation that is used to regulate society and the order of society from a sociological perspective. It's a tool of social order and control.
Okay. I know Deon Gray, you will be doing a lot of the questioning, but there's a burning issue in Jamaica right now, and it's about legalizing obeah.
Um, I'm gonna say this, Jocelyn, and then I'm gonna allow Miss Monroe to delve into it. I don't think it's a matter of legalizing, and you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you are absolutely right.
It's not legalizing. It's taking it off the books.
Yes, decriminalizing legalizing it. People will say that it's a flip side to it, yin and yang. But with decriminalization, it is so that there is no offense. Right now, we have you can get up to a year imprisonment. So it's not that the government is going to say you can do Obeah. Basically, they're gonna be maybe even saying don't do Obeah, but we are not going to make you into a criminal
Yeah.
when you do Obeah.
Oh,
So in truth and in fact, no, Jocelyn, if me have milk or high and milk or almonds powder, right? On the back seat, right? And the police pulled me over. And I remember my wife would buy me one strong perfume. So
Couscous.
come on the
Not
Vanessa,
couscous anymore.
right? And when him stop me, the smell is, fly out of the window upon him. He say, wait, yeah, practice Obeah. You can't lock me up.
Okay. Okay. Point taken. Point taken. that yes, that's it. That's it. Thank you. Clarity. All right. So know that that is much clearer to me because I don't pretend that I know everything. Um.
Oh,
Not quite. We don't believe in Obeah.
no. Not no.
Even know what Obeah is in the law. When they hear about Obeah and the decriminalization of Obeah, um, retired chief here would like to just explain to persons what the law as it stands now in the letter of the law is what is called Obeah.
Well, basically, it's a funny thing that a man once said that I don't know about Obeah, but when I see it, I know it. And that's basically what the law is because the Obeah in the law, section 2 of the law says, Obeah shall be deemed to be one as nihilism. But nihilism is not defined. But when we look into the history of what is nihilism, it is actually an African religion that we brought over with us. And the real idea about Obeah is that it has been associated with supernatural powers, occultism, and those kinds of things. But the idea is that it frightens a lot of persons and put a lot of persons under stress. I went the other day down to me and some of the judges to a training, and one of the judges was telling me how many times these persons bring the Obeah, the padlocked bullfrog up the steps, the oil and powder sprinkling and so on, and that she had to one day clear out her courtroom and tell them, come and clean and sanitize this courtroom because she became sore afraid. And she said sometimes they come and they hold their hands in particular ways and they do all kind of things to kind of put her in fear and under subjection.
science again.
Puka paka.
May I just interject? I notice on television we have a lot of Indian spiritual healers who are now advertising on TV that they are. Is that legal?
Jocelyn, you said spiritual healers. And before I allow our learned legislative person here to answer,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say to her that based on what she said a while ago, there is certainly a conflict because she alluded to maleism, and male is founded in a traditional folk form that is on the books that students study in theater arts in our schools right across the Caribbean, and it's found in Kumina. Kumina is one of the folk forms that students study, and one of the feature or the main feature of Kumina is male, right? And it's a spirit possession, right? Where the leader, who is referred to as Queenie, calls on spirits. And with the calling of the spirits, things happen. So I don't know how they're going to treat
Just to
with that one.
interject there. This goes back to the role of religion in society and the constitutional right of the right to religion. And the fact that we are dealing with here classism when you allude to different types of spirit, what is labeled white craft or white witchcraft or black witchcraft, or and that is classism in religion. And in looking at this topic, what we need to look at is the role of religion in society every single religion, as the social theorists would say that the role of religion in society is to calm fears, because what you would call Obeah is somebody feel them husband going to leave them, somebody feel that somebody is going to harm them, they are going to lose their jobs, and and then the concept of even death, you feel like you're going to die, and the role of religion in society, the symbolic role is to calm stress
And anxiety.
and anxiety. And do not forget that the church or the religion back in the past was the law and the governance. And so this is classism that we're dealing with, where you have the black Obeah, the Indian Obeah, the white Obeah, and the different types of Obeah from the different cultures that have come in, and they are now competing to the effect that persons don't want to say that they are going to decriminalize. It is very funny that it has been around for a while before the Indians and all of those gurus start advertising on our radios and television. And no, there was no talk of decriminalization until they have come.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. There's been talk of decriminalization across the years. First, let me say this, that Christian people don't believe in Obeah because they feel that, or we feel that we have a higher spiritual calling or a higher
Classism.
spirit,
Amen.
hold on, that we can call upon. We can call upon God, we can call upon Jesus. However, we have to see this Obeah thing in context that it is an offspring of the class system, and it's an offspring of slavery and an attempt to control the lower class of persons. So the primary function of the Obeah Act was to keep the masses under control. And the masses, the masters would fear what they would do, the effect of the powder. Some of those all on powder. And don't get it wrong now. A lot of what we call Obeah is plain poisoning. So some of those all on powder, you'd hear somebody say, I'm not afraid of Obeah, I just don't want them to touch my food because it's a poison. And so that the law nowadays has kind of fallen out of use. Hardly anybody is really prosecuting people for Obeah, even though one of my furniture man down in Richmond Park, he was prosecuted in the last 10 years or so for Obeah. He was found with a skull and some other things. But that's that aside. I don't want to get into that. But the long and short of it is that the decriminalization of it, in my mind, would not be an endorsement of it. That we believe that it's a wonderful thing, but perhaps businesses could be created out of it to fight against the Indian man's
Yeah,
business.
because I'm not seeing, Vanessa, I'm not seeing where there Mr. Man from that parish there, he could take out an ad on television. Welcome to thing there. I can make you get visa and so forth and so forth. Canadian, so forth and so forth.
There is.
To a bit of the history. Obeah became a crime for the first time as a result of rebellions by slaves in the 1960, and it was the Jamaican planters' response to the biggest rebellion that took place in the 18th century, which became
Not
known
1960, 1860.
1860.
Because the Obeah Act is
Right.
1898.
It was by slaves in the 1760 rather.
Oh,
yeah.
The law was a planter's response to the biggest slave rebellion which took place in the 18th century, which was known as the Tacky's Rebellion. And this rebellion began at Easter, and when 150 enslaved people attacked Fort Port Maria in the parish of St. Mary, their leader Tacky, an enslaved man from the Gold Coast, today called Ghana, gave the rebellion its name, and the resistance grew. And it spread across the island to the Saints, Clarendons, and Kingston, and the fighters forged solidarities through oaths, rituals, and spiritual protection that drew upon the Akan spiritual knowledge. And he was an old Coromantin who of his profession was chief in counseling, and he instigated the herd And what they did was they administered rather powder, and they rubbed it on their bodies, and it made them invulnerable, persuaded them into their belief that they could hide and they could not be harmed. And it was really to really get rid of the evil government at the time. The African religion was used to get rid of the evil powers that be. So I really wonder what sorts of stuff are we going to be using today's Obeah to do?
Oh, Ho- hold on. I have this is interesting because in the past, the Africans, them say believe kill and believe cure, and good leaders will do everything to persuade their followers to do that which they believe to be good. And you said something which is very important, that the evil government of the time needed to come under control. So Obeah is now thrown in light as something bad, but actually it can be looked at from another perspective.
Invention.
Oh yes.
But may I tell you something? In the definition of a person practicing Obeah, I noted something very, very interesting. It says a person practicing Obeah means any person who, to effect any fraudulent or unlawful purpose, suggesting that you can do it for a lawful purpose, or for gain, suggesting that you can do it for free, or for any purpose of frightening any person, suggesting that if you're not trying to frighten somebody, you could do it, uses or pretends to use any occult means, or pretends to possess any supernatural power or knowledge. That's a person practicing
Right.
Obeah. So they have left a place for it to not be fraudulent, to be lawful, and don't gain from it. You can do
So retired chief has put it in perspective. However, when you look at the social scientist definition of occultism, which is mentioned in the law, because law is a social tool, one feature of occultism is having clients, and that is the Obeah man has clients. Well, it's just a social scientist perspective, but and then the law speaks of doing this thing for gain. But I wonder if it's just the Obeah alone that we would need to that needs legislation to
No.
control that, because you have other forms of secret societies and what is
it's
called
not secret It's
occultism,
not secret societies, Vanessa. Religions.
other form of religions.
Because I know of a gentleman. He's not from our shores. He comes here and he has boxes and boxes of oil, and persons gather at the national arena,
I
and he
remember that.
bless the oil, and he
Because
gives out
holy
rags,
water, holy
yeah,
water.
and he touches people, and they fall to the ground, and they take the oil, and when they go home, everything will be smooth and dandy. That's not Obeah.
So
That's
what
fraud.
we're dealing with now is a constitutional right. Even in every constitution, as retired chief here will tell you more about the constitution and the right to religious practice, there are derogations, and a derogation could be that something is really harmful, but the law, letter of the law, it has spelled out, what it considers to be harmful. It's the fraudulent activity, and she says if it can be fraudulent, then it can be truthful too. So, however, though, I read an article in the Gleaner. It's called Moral Principles and Powers, May 17th, 2019, by Morvet Sr. And he speaks of the constant disappearance of children. And what he says in quote is constant disappearance of children there are sacrificial benefits to those under secret orders to maintain secret power, and the notion has become a vessel for witchcraft, Obeah, and lodge. So you have different forms of societies, or different forms of religious practices that it is said to be riddled with nihilism or blood sacrifice, and it's different from you going to the person to say I need little prayers or a little oil to get a job, as opposed to you are killing somebody and cutting off their head. So where do we come down on the rights to religious practices, or religious practices any at all? So we derogate from the rights, that is where
All right. A friend of mine told me that he used to, as a young boy, work with a renowned Obeah man in his district. And when he told me the story, it sounded as if he used to uh, fraud people, because people complain that, boy, me hear dopey from my house stop, and he say when the man approach the house, him circle the house to see what's happening, and him look up at the tree, and what he realized that the tree had a limb hang on the house. So when the wind blow at night, it rub on the brushes on the zinc. So people were saying Obeah man Duppy was on the house top at night time. Another thing that he would do to scare people was to get ice and throw it on the house top. So when you come out now, you hear some big stone at night time, you come out, say nothing, and you cannot explain. So a person who's pretending to be an Obeah man and collecting money, can that person be charged?
Yes, absolutely. Because under Section 3 of the Obeah Act, every person practicing Obeah is liable to 12 months with or without hard labor. And then the person who consults the Obeah man under Section 4 is also liable to 6 months. And then also the person who who buys the Obeah paraphernalia, then they have them, they call them these candle shops. I know that there's one up
drugstore.
There's one down in the town, right?
Retired chief. Listen, there's so much double standard here that I'm starting to see doubles. I am starting to see doubles because me know of one place downtown, and that place always full. It ever full.
Again. I don't want me.
Success oil, confidence oil. You remember that song there? The man piaba, woman piaba.
Yeah.
And then they have one compellence something. And they mix them.
Just
We
simplify
mix
it.
with the oils and mix it.
Keep talking.
So that's the real situation that we know of. Because under this Obeah Act, with all the paraphernalia of these gurus, I am surprised that we haven't got. And do they have work permits if they are not? If they are practicing an illegal practice, do they have work permits to be working in Jamaica? So all kinds of things is now.
Yeah, we need to get
we need to really and truly, because
they are
Vanessa, you're gone over here,
yes, and then you have the Rastafarian religion that is African, and these religions are there and they are getting their glory, and we really, what are we doing about the Rastafarians and their own Africanness and their own belief systems? And
that is shunned. That is shunned because that is of blacks, and if it's of the black, then it is no good.
When it's Bob Marley put Jamaica on the map, a reggae and Rasta.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, in terms of music, I'm saying that that particular community, that particular Rastafarian community, we has done so much musically for us. Their own religion. We should do like Haiti now. They have voodoo in their constitution and they protect it. So are we going to put Rastafarianism in ours and Obeah? And how far do we go constitutionally to amend these laws so that practice what they want freely or not?
No, I don't think you want
to do that.
People
right.
to practice what they want freely. I think you have to understand each society
is
based on different beliefs.
Yeah.
Each society persons act differently. And each society has what that society wishes to accept. and we can foist things on people.
You know.
I think
But you know,
we have another big question. I don't want to call the name, the age question that comes up to mind readily now.
Oh,
as
the
to-
age question.
Yes,
Yeah.
as to whether that question should be accepted, yes or no. But I don't want to go off on a tangent. I want to say that most of what is being practiced as Obeah is not nihilism.
but you know,
Hold on there, Vinny. It's not nihilism. It is fraud.
Okay.
Let's
It's fraud.
let's accept that. These men who come, they don't.
And that's
have
the
any
mischief of the law.
See supernatural.
But however,
powers.
though, we need
they
to-
are not trying to make
we
a
need to be
money.
very careful, because when you are decriminalizing and another Caribbean island has put voodoo in their constitution as an official religion, when we are decriminalizing, we are not going to put anything in the constitution as being our national religion of Obeah
I don't know if I don't think we've gone
so we
there.
need to be careful what we are
I think-
decriminalizing and legalizing, because it may go higher up in the legal
I
pecking
think-
order.
Yeah, but I think though that this decriminalizing has to do with the fact that rascal police officers, for example, they go and they take money from these people and harass them, and they are poor. So just
May I interject? May I interject?
the government maybe wants to get rid of some of those situations, but I don't think that it is something that we are saying Obeah is good and we should rely on Obeah for our
So
solace.
statistically,
Chief, let me ask you something. 1 minute, event. Chief, let me ask you something. You said earlier, hold on, just 12 months imprisonment. But you know what you never say?
Deputy, yeah.
Deputy. You know what you never say? What's the fine?
The fine, some of it is out of place because the consulting is $100,
US?
but Jamaican,
Okay.
so it's de minimis now.
Indian dollars.
And $1,000. I think the first one was, let me check it. The first one doesn't have any fine. Consulting for fraudulent purposes, it's only 6 months alone, no
I
fine,
noticed it
so
said
it's
only.
compulsory. Well, what I mean, I said only, not only in terms of being low, but solely 6 months.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other one is $100 and 12 months, and so on. So I think the punishment no longer fits
It's
the
the crime.
crime over time and the value of money.
Since they have
no longer,
clients.
so it's no longer a sufficient deterrent. And I think maybe that's why the decriminalization question would come up.
Or possibly though, those
However-
menial fines could be sending a signal that this is we're not serious about it, and I am beginning to wonder:
You
is this
think it should be raised?
is this something that we need to really be spending time on? Because if you do not have statistics that have Obeah men filling the prisons and the police stations, then why are we now at this point, Mr. Siaga? I think he was a man who had studied Obeah. Why are we now at this time touting this on?
Very great respect. Mr. Siaga did not study
As
Obeah.
a topic
Mr.
academically.
Exactly.
Academically, he did not being an Obeah man, but he was a person who had studied the
I don't
African
know
religion.
that he studied Obeah. I know that he studied revivalism,
Right,
which is a
which-
different
yeah.
thing. And
Interestingly-
let us not equate.
And interestingly, there's a table going on right now downtown.
Downtown?
Yeah, no,
Outside?
there's a table right now down at
You
Tivoli.
can't lock up nobody down there.
Right.
Go
But
down there for
I
bad.
want to ask.
Hold on. Before you ask the question, there's a true story of a policeman stop a taximan. Apparently, this taximan was being harassed over and over by police. So he went to his glove compartment, took a bird beak pliers that I understood, and pulled the documents out. And his statement to the policeman was, after holding it very stingily with the pliers, you know, long we want to catch one now, no. what what would that policeman what could have that policeman do in a situation like that? Because in his mind, this is Obeah, and he wants to get out of the situation rather than stay in the situation.
Psychology, man. Man just use psychology for it.
This table that's set now, tell me more about it down at Tivoli.
Honestly, Vanessa, I would love to go down. I would love to go down and because revivalism is very much a part of the Jamaican.
And it is not Obeah, is it?
No, very much far from
Alright,
it.
speaking about court dress, if somebody was to turn up for trial, the Rasta men, there are countries where they put out people in the Muslim dress. I've seen cases. So if the Obeah woman was to go to court now in her red garment and her fence, let me put out.
Hold on. Let's say the practitioner.
Yes, the practitioner. The
There is
practitioner.
there's no uniform for Obeah. There is no uniform for Obeah, so that you would say the Obeah woman goes in her revival. That is somebody's religion you're talking about. And unfortunately, the colonial masters, they taught us that Obeah is the same as the folk religion.
Because we used
The
to throw them out.
religion
Evil government.
that we brought from
Because we use it to throw
Africa.
them out.
And that is unfortunate because it doesn't seem to be the same, and this is not what the law intended. Because as you see, the law had defined person practicing Obeah as somebody who is fraudulent, unlawful,
Tricky.
for gain, so making a money, and for frightening.
You know what I want to know? They say tacky the
people.
use of powder to get rid of that evil government. I wonder if anybody have that recipe.
So
Deputy Chief.
nihilism. So the question, I can't tell you technically, 'cause I'm not so technically.
Yeah.
I'm a mere lawyer here.
Yeah.
But I would say that with the Obeah, the nihilism and the revivalism are two different folk forms. However, it is not the nihilism, the way how the law is crafted, is not the nihilism so much that is being sanctioned,
And here,
right?
yeah.
It is the fraud, the illegality,
And the manipulation.
the make a money, and the fright and the scare that is.
I'm
want
going
to-
back to
that is
our
being-
leader.
And pretense.
I want to ask you something.
Hold on.
I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
We trampled on Obeah for a bit. What of the Maria Dean's case? For me, I could be wrong. Maria Dean's case was a turning point in Jamaica for the legalization
Or the weed.
of the weed, because just tonight on television, persons who suffered from the that atrocity that happened in the 70s, they are still seeking some
60s, are you talking about the one
Green
down in-
Bay.
Oh, Green
Yeah,
Bay.
yeah, Green
No,
Bay.
70s.
Yeah. So on ganja now,
And tell the listener a little bit that what the Green Bay was about.
Green Bay was one of the atrocities that was
Massacre.
meted.
With the Rasta
Massacre,
men.
yeah.
No, not with the rest of them. Some soldiers.
Some soldiers.
Basically, they line up some people and shot them.
And shot them.
For what?
Right?
Yes. The Rasta one you're talking about, it was the one down in
Green.
Montego
Go for
Bay.
religious freedom.
All right.
Yeah.
So where are we now as in law as to the weed? Because there's a place downtown where you can go and buy the weed, just like how you buy.
And beside,
Peanut.
in Marketplace too, there is one weed store, and there is another one that I know of in Marby Bay, St. Ann, right beside the gas station there, after you exit the toll. But the idea is that you register there, it's a licensed place, and you can go and you buy your weed, but you don't just buy. You have to have a medical condition that weed will alleviate.
Okay.
And so there's a doctor there, and you go to
So
the
from a
doctor.
law reform perspective, are we saying that if we're looking at Obeah in terms of how the decriminalization of marijuana has gone on, then a similar scheme could be adopted where you could go and buy your oil and powder legally somewhere and set up. And then I must
No, but all of
just a minute. There's something else I really want to say. you know, like Mr. Siaga was an ex one of those ex-colonial leaders. You know, he was closer to that era than us, as to why he was so interested
I don't
in
understand this
no,
notion
no,
of
hold on.
ex-colonial. What do you
No, no,
mean
I
by
mean
that?
he was close. All right, like we are further away from the slave rebellion. They were born closer to independence and the overthrow at that time. So
But not the
he
slave rebellion.
the emancipation
Independence.
independence, you know what I mean. So I'm just saying they are closer in age to the Taki rebellion, and their memory would be fresher. And it's
No, not
just
Mr.
I'm making
Siaga.
another point, and I'm using
Alright,
him
okay.
because I'm not using him in a negative way in light of this. I am just saying that the power that had been ascribed from the use of the African religion to get rid of the evil powers. Some of our leaders might have believed in that power and carries on today as to why this thing is to be decriminalized, because they see the power of what they call the closeness of the African religion. Not that I agree with it, but I'm just saying that may be their own
I don't
perspective
know.
because they are closer to that era than
I don't
us.
I
I don't
don't
know.
think so. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think that the real thing is that we have this law. It's 1898. It's slightly anachronistic now. It has outlived its time, and we don't believe in it. We are not espouse it as a way to alleviate stress and anxiety, but we do recognize that the disuse, the misuse, all of those things, we should consider it as to what are we going to do with this
With it.
law. So I think it is timely that there should be a
Because-
proper study.
All right. I have a very interesting point to make, or to ask rather. On YouTube there is a interview with an ex Obeah man, and he pointed out a lot of things in that interview. Is it something that we're going to look at to help us? Well, he was saying that how he grew. I didn't know that there is a place in Jamaica that teaches people, like you go to one of those, yes, like a college. I don't remember exactly, but he says there is a place. But his point of sharing his story is that Obeah, as he know it, is terrible. And yeah, and it should be avoided. Yes, and he says that based on his experience, he's now a Christian, so to speak, and he's saying that with his experience, he can walk into a church and tell if there's fraudulency happening there in terms of the spirituality. So he's now a rounded person, but his side of the story could give us some insight, or is giving us some insight of what is really happening in that side of the world. I'm not saying that Obeah is bad, and I'm not endorsing it either as something good, because in my opinion, I am more for an individual of becoming spiritual than saying that you're tied to a religion, because I think religion, in my opinion, can be dangerous. Dangerous in the sense that you are loyal to a group and you see nobody else. And the story in the scriptures that I use to back this up is the story of the Good Samaritan. When you look at the Samaritan, his generation or people were shunned by the Jew. And this man was beaten and robbed. And the Jew, 3 Jew, passed him, did nothing. But the Samaritan, who people did not like, came and used his own personal resources to take care of this man by the wayside. Now, when you look at that, he could have said, you know what? I am a Samaritan and you people don't regard me as anybody. So you stay there and dead. And what was amazing about that story, he went further when after looking after this man, he took him to an inn, which you would probably refer to as a clinic or a hospital, and says, when I come back, any extra charge, me will pay a fee. Just tell me. No, he could have just looked and say, you know what? I am a Samaritan. You're a Jew, and you guys don't revere me or count me as anybody. So you know what? I'm off. I'm on my way. He didn't do that. So I am saying that we need to look at situation because I go to church, but I don't like the stigma to be called a Christian. When you're a spiritual person, you look past religion. Like the Samaritan, the story, the Samaritan. Go ahead.
Because that is a popular statement that I hear people say. I want to be spiritual. I don't want to be called Christian, whatever. It is because we have mixed up several ideas. I'm gonna go to that, but let me just flick it back to the Obeah talk. The question, which is why I say we need a nice study, because the question as to what constitutes Obeah is unclear. There's a new movement as to herbs. The government is now setting up a new law for nutricides and herbal remedies, and everybody knows the power of bush and the knowledge of bush, etc.
Butch
So there
back.
was this syncretization where the Obeah man is also the herbalist, or the man who has studied concentration. He might be just a wise man. Let's look at one little thing. You have these Obeah men and women, and they will tell you. As you go to them, they tell you your neighbor grudge you. And they will tell you, is your neighbor do this and that. Because they've studied society and they know that usually the problem is with you and your neighbor living together in harmony. And so a lot of falsehood gets built into what constitutes Obeah. So we are unclear. Likewise with spirituality. What kind of spirituality are you talking about here? There is the seance type spirituality, and then there is spirituality based on goodness and love and Jesus love and all kinds of things like that. So the thing is that sometimes we're talking, but we're not communicating because we are not them as to what constitutes spirituality. Now, a Christian, I understand the traditional sense is that the Christian is Christ like in that
Should be.
he or she understands what Christ, because Christ is a remarkable man, you know. Think about this man. He, at a time when everybody was into class and scorning people and treating them badly, he came along and he was brilliant. He went into the temple and he was young and awed all the bright people. And then he grew up, and he just grew up in love, which I try to be Christ like in how I do my thing too. And he grew up in love, and he just gave to others, and he didn't take anything for himself. So the point I'm making is that if you are thinking of spiritual Christianity in terms of following the tenets of Christ, there can't be much wrong with that. And I want to say that like minded persons can come together. And when you come, just like how the criminals got together in the dead of the night and plot to loot and plunder, also Christians can come together. They are persecuted sometimes outside and strengthen each other. So do
I
not say.
I I no. Let me hold on. V. I am not saying that something is wrong with a Christian. That's not my point. All right, because the point I'm trying to make, and I've seen this, and I'm hope that this discussion will help people to think and to be different. When a group of people meet together, one might say, I am from this denomination, I'm from this denomination. And then, for example, somebody will come and say, I'm a Catholic. And people look at that person, or Catholic Christians, or somebody will say, I'm from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Are those people Christians? You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
I do think just like you, because what I have seen, you have the Selassies,
Mm-hmm.
you have the Jesuses, you have the Mohammeds, and because of human want to be connected to their divine one, it has become racialized, it has become culturalized, it has become politicized, and these men stand between us and God. I wondered when you had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Abednego as they would call it, and there was no Jesus, and they were in the middle of the fire, and Moses was before Goliath, and there was no Jesus there. Is who them pray to. So these men, I call them even up. I know I called all of them even up because they want to become God. I believe, my belief system is that Jesus is a prophet, Selassie may be a prophet, Muhammad may be, they are all prophets, and they are all vessels that are used by the Most High. But for me, they are not gods, and what they have done is stand between us and the divine one. If I was
Not
God,
they, not all of them, because Jesus don't stand between
we no.
anybody.
I believe
For the
even him.
record.
No. He is one of the main ones. And
No, it's not
Let me
him.
make my point.
It is what the people
It is my
interpret.
own perspective that I
Yes.
feel their interpretation of Jesus and those prophets have stood between us and God, and we focus on the differences. If you read all those religious texts, they all say the same thing. I had a Muslim student in England who said to me, Miss, are you going to study Islam? And I said to him, I have studied your 5 pillars. Have you ever studied my Bible? Because I must admit that I grew up with a mother who I had to eat the leaves of the Bible, and I took it here today. But I said to him, when you have studied my Bible, and we can have a sensible discussion as to the comparisons in your Quran and my Bible, then we can have some agreement. But we sit and we fight over the differences. We do not unite, as retired chief says, in the love. And all of these philosophies have good and bad, but we sit down and being mankind who are carnal and not of the divine one, we sit down and fight over the differences, and it is really tearing the world apart today. We need to focus on the love.
All right. All right. So we're hoping that we will have some legislations that will bring some unity, the love, because at the end of the day, whether you're of one religion or another, we all need love. Bring the family back together, and one of the important things that we need to know is that in the past, it was, whether we want to say it was religion or a spiritual sense of awareness that allow people to be in a state that they realize that evil is destroying us. Let's unite as a family and get rid of this. We need to see our laws in such a way, and I'm hoping that we will be able to teach some of this in schools. And if we're not teaching it in school, then the children won't understand, because and they won't gravitate towards what is being said and what is being done. So we need to have some curriculum that teach the basic laws that will inspire the minds of our children to do better in life. Because I like the quote. I think they say Marcus Garvey. I've never seen it for myself. They said Marcus Garvey say, if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. We need to know where we are going, and if we're going somewhere, how am I going to get there? What means of transportation I'm going to use to take me there? And we need to inspire our children mind. So we need to wrap up. So let's have the last word from the professionals.
One little statement,
Yes.
and it has to do with laws. There's a theory of law that says that legislation and laws often manifest the breakdown of society. And therefore, in order to build society, we have to look less to laws and look to the family, which is the basic unit of society. And therefore, we have to teach the values and the morals, etc., in the home. Laws are good because the legislation scores runs in sixes rather than in singles. And so rather than wait and teach and so on, you can direct quickly in a day. Something can be made into a law, criminalized, decriminalized, whatever.
And implementation
glad-
has to be looked at the
I'm
current
glad,
laws.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Deputy Chief, because we had a brief conversation before we came on here, and we spoke about paternity. And you said the same thing about legislation and laws. And I just want to say to the listeners, what is your take on the whole matter of paternity? Because
Paternity leave, was it?
paternity leave for
Paternity leave
Jamaican
for Jamaican
fathers.
father. I think its time has come. It is, as Mr. Chuck often says, a low hanging fruit. I think there should be paternity leave. Jamaican fathers have a hard time, they get a bad rap, but most Jamaican fathers are good fathers, and the paternity leave should be there so that the children who are left at home can be cared for and the mother can live more comfortable during those first few days. I must tell you something, when I had my twin, I fell asleep about like in the second or the third week. One day I fell asleep from about 2 o'clock the day until the next day. And I asked my husband, I said, why you didn't wake me up? And he said, I tried and you couldn't wake up. And I said, then what happened to the babies? And he said he made them suckle while I was sleeping. So what that means is that there is a role for the father in the
Definitely.
protection of the baby, in the protection of the mother, and it's something that Jamaica should rush to. And I call upon the Prime Minister to answer that call
Yes.
and at least set the ball a rolling for paternity.
And I would like to
Yes.
add to that we need to use the role of the law to socialize the husbands back to home. And retired chief, how you think we can get Parliament to pass this law? We need to go to a Obeah man to ask him to do it. We need someone take his powder
This is a great place.
to get them to pass the paternity law.
Vanessa, Vanessa,
Bewitch them
Vanessa,
or divine intervention.
Vanessa.
No, we're going to pray.
We're gonna pray. Earlier you mentioned Ciara. The
Bless
table,
his soul.
the table is going on
Of blessed
right now
memory.
down at Tivoli. But he was the one who said to the dissidents at the time, light a candle,
Candle.
sing a song, kid, and fall in the back of Jamaica River Party.
It was an analogy, perhaps a fault, yeah.
Fraudulent.
It was not
Not to be
the candle, the candles are burning
was a
tonight.
character, His fair skin lighting candles and all them things. I admire the man.
Listen to me. I use Mr. Edward Seager, the late Honorable Edward Seager, to let us understand. He teaches us a lot of lessons. There is a stigma. Sometimes people say that white people don't care for black people. On TV, Mr. Seager don't really look like he's a white man, and they say he's a Syrian. I saw him personally once in my life, and yeah, but some people paint him as a white man, and if that's how they paint him, he he enjoys he enjoys working and looking after people who are not his shade of color. So I respect him for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end of our program. This is the Smoothling Show, and we had such a wonderful time discussing and talking about legislation, what this Obeah mean. And I heard a video recording. I think my wife was listening to it, and I heard it. There was this pastor man that beat the Delroy Chuck bad when it come to that thing, man. Beat him up bad. Boy, listen to me now. He can get a piece of beaten, and he was not there. But this helps us to understand what is going to happen and what should happen. It is now illegal, and if you do certain things, you're going to get locked up. So if you defraud Smooth Link show of any money, we want it back, or we're going to call police by you. Well, you're not going to get our money because we don't run them joke there.
If you wish to contact Mrs. Boswell Monroe, anything to do with law, she works or she's connected to Monroe and Monroe attorneys at law at 10 Altamont Crescent.
Yeah,
At Altamont Crescent in New Kingston.
All right, thanks for that.
Yes, we we are grateful for these two ladies to grace us with their presence. I really feel honored to be in your presence. Uh, yes, feel special.
For being for inviting us to be part of the show, and the entire team here, teacher beside us here, Mr. Thompson, the entire team of Roots. It was my pleasure and honor to be serving. I see this as a way of serving the country that I so love, Jamaica.
Yeah, Yakalamashka.
Yes, yes, indeed. So it's another smoothing show. We're grateful for everyone who has been listening so far. And we just want you to know that this is the Smoothing Show. Wednesday is very exciting because we're going to move right now into a segment that we call Sounds from Africa. And I know I have some young upcoming DJs who are depending on me to play their songs. And I'm very excited about that. You know, there is a video I saw, Mr. Gray. I saw a video earlier today on YouTube, and the man was saying that we as individuals, we must be a hero for those who are not heroes. And I thought about that and I said, you know what? We have some upcoming artists who are trying their best to break into the industry. And people behind the scene, you know, the little collection. Yeah, the offering plate empty and they want to collect. So that's almost like what you call them now? Entertainers, Obeah entertainers, or collecting for these young men to get rich. Boy, man, I tell you, we don't know how we're gonna deal with it, you know. But we need to set up an industry. Yes, yes. We have Dudley Thompson here who does his best to promote a lot of these artists, you know. But the
are we doing to build the what are we doing to build the music industry and the new talent? I know Roots FM has a program where they several programs where they seem to be promoting new artists, and Mr. Dudley Thompson, Jocelyn, I must thank you for helping me to order my footsteps, which is the other part of my shenanigans. And as an upcoming artist myself, we need an NGO to help them. I mean, the Ministry of Culture should possibly have some kind of program where you have a studio like an incubator that produces these people and give them capital to keep even festivals in other countries.
Vanessa,
Yes.
you say all of that on here, but you see the studio,
Yeah.
that incubator we are thinking about?
Yeah.
All right, that's right over there, man.
All right.
Yeah, all right,
So we're gonna write the project.
Yeah, man. Right now, we can.
Yes, we and yeah, the incubator, and what flows from it is that we beat music management, beat building, sound recording, and then we market them, and we can set up festivals in other countries where we are producing. We are producing those festivals and the money comes back to Jamaica. And instead of waiting on a man to carry up on a tour, we are organizing festivals in Germany, Jamaican people doing it, producing it. And we bring the artists there and we keep the money, we give the Germans some of it, and we keep the most of it for ourselves.
Yeah.
So we need a hub, an incubator, to because there's so much talent out there that goes on scene. Well, my feel of this is I am the daughter of Ranchi McLean, of Sly and Ranchi before it became Sly and Robbie, Grammy Award artist. So I really have a love for music, and music brought me in the first place to these studios. And more persons, maybe like myself, who have another side to them, really need to get involved in the music industry and help to drive one of the things that attract persons to Jamaica is our music, our culture. How are we driving the culture? Because don't forget, when we were colonized, it is taking one's culture and replacing it with their own culture. So now we have been colonizing the world through reggae music. So we need to continue with that colonization of reggae music, because our reggae put Jamaica up on the map.
All right, powerful ladies in studio. Yeah, let's have a powerful people in concert and powerful wedding concert. Powerful ladies in studio. Yes, yes. Even if I'm not here when it's happening, I want it to manifest.
Tell me you will be here.
Stop your overing.
I want the one that you love when roots become the hub.
Well, roots, the concept of
Roots is
the
roots.
heart of the
It's
Yeah.
to grow. It's to grow the
so it's
roots.
really the home.
Yes.
Because you see the foundation not good, the roots not good.
That's
and that's
again-
where we need to look right now for the
Yeah.
building of the family in Jamaica.
Yeah, man.
The roots.
The roots. The roots.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, this hub has to start from here, because of the name, the roots.
Wow.
So, Miss Babsy Grange, I want you and the Ministry of Culture to come down to Roots and help them with this hub.
She's not here, you know.
Ra-
She don't. She
Oh,
jump, she jump,
Babsy
she
down
jump.
and culture,
Yeah,
jump down
yeah,
in
she a jump,
downtown.
she a jump too.
I go and go down there, go look if I see her.
Yes. And tell her good night for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we gotta run. It is now 11 o'clock on the hour. And we have been enjoying the discussion so far. We thank our special guests for being here and for making Roots the station to listen to. We're gonna go to a little break, and then we come back with some music.
It's refreshing, it's revitalizing, and it's the epitome of music, sports, and entertainment. It's the Dudley Thompson Show on your number one community radio station, Roots 96.1 FM, on Saturdays from 6 to 8 p.m. with the wacky one, Dudley Thompson. It's the perfect blend of sports, interviews, wacky news, and of course, what's the verdict? It's the Dudley Thompson Show on your number one community radio station, Roots 96.1 FM, every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Don't miss it.